Continuity in writing is like a masterfully constructed bridge, smoothly carrying your readers from one idea to the next, with no effort on their part. It helps readers get what the heck you're trying to say, and keeps their brains from getting overwhelmed. When there are gaps between sentences, readers must work extra hard to connect the dots, and that can lead to confusion and misunderstanding. Being able to predict what's coming up is a big part of understanding. So, if you follow established patterns and conventions, they can stay one step ahead and know what to expect. To help you do that, I'll share these 5 principles in as simple manner as I can. Oh, and don't worry about using all the principles all the time at the same time. Continuity only needs 2 to 3 at a time to tie sentences together. The only one you should almost always observe is the first principle, which is 1. Stick the important stuff at the end of sentences and paragraphs. When it comes to remembering things, people tend to remember the last item in a list the best. The beginnings of things come in second, while the middle parts are easily forgotten. So, as a writer, it's crucial to put the most important information at the end of your sentences. Now, this can be useful for mystery writers like me, as we can do things like hide important information within things. Also, with lists, try to keep them short and sweet. Readers can only remember so much, usually around 5 items, so don't overload them with a never-ending list of things they'll forget in a heartbeat. Finally, with overload, be careful with long sentences. They're like a maze that readers struggle to navigate. Long sentences can lack clear cues for important information, and readers can get lost in the complexity. Plus, some people's working memory can only handle so much. It'll vary based on the reader's comprehension level. You can't please everybody, and you shouldn't try to, but do what you can to keep your sentences snappy and to the point. 2. Connect sentences with transitions. As I said before, readers are always trying to anticipate what comes next, but sometimes, without transitions, it can be a real struggle for them to make sense of the content. Picture this: you read a sentence about pizza, and the next one is about the bubonic plague. What on earth is the connection? Your readers will be scratching their head. That's where transitions come in. Transitions give your readers a heads up on how to interpret the upcoming sentence in relation to what they've already read. If you use words like and, also, or to at the beginning of the sentence, you're signaling that your next sentence adds to the previous one. But if you use transitions like but, however, or conversely, you're letting your reader know that the next sentence is going to be a contrast with what they just read. Without these handy transitions, your readers will be left hanging, wondering how the sentences are connected. They might even have to backtrack and reread to figure it out. And let's be honest, as a writer, you don't want that. So, sprinkle those transitions throughout your writing to keep your sentences flowing and your readers engaged. Oh, and here's a pro tip. Causal transitions are pretty powerful. Words like as a result, therefore, because, and consequently let the reader know that the previous sentence caused the outcome of the next one. They help readers follow your line of thinking and avoid any confusion. So, don't underestimate the impact of causal transitions in your writing. 3. Connect the dots with sequencing. Sequencing is like a magic trick that ties your sentences together, especially when you're dealing with complex or tricky topics. So, here's the deal. When you're sequencing information, you start by putting the important stuff at the end of the sentence. But here's the secret sauce. You also bring in familiar information from the previous sentence at the beginning of the next one. It's like a gentle transition that eases your readers into the new material. Why does this work? Well, our brains love familiarity. We naturally focus on what we already know before diving into something new. And when you use sequencing, you're taking advantage of this brain quirk. By linking the new information with what readers just read, you're creating a clear connection in their minds. And that's not all. Sequencing also taps into our knack for seeing relevance in the world around us. We assume that sentences are related and meaningful. So sequencing plays into this assumption by making the link between sentences explicit. It's like connecting the dots in your reader's mind. And guess what? Studies have shown that readers remember sentences better when there's a clear connection between them. When sentences flow seamlessly, readers can easily position what they're about to read in relation to what they just read. 4. Keep your grammatical subjects consistent from sentence to sentence. Now, I'm not saying you must use the exact same word as your subject in every sentence. That would be dull. But what you can do is refer to the same concept using similar terms. This creates a sense of familiarity and primes your reader to expect certain topics. Why does this matter? Well, our brains love patterns and repetition. When we see the same word or concept repeated, it sticks in our minds. It's like a mental nudge that says, hey, pay attention to this. And when you can use consistent subjects, it helps readers remember what they've already read and understand how it connects to the next sentence. But here's the thing. Don't rely on subjects alone to hold your sentences together. You still need some transitions to make the connection stronger. Transitions are like the glue that keeps everything in place. They help guide your reader from one sentence to the next, smoothly and without confusion. Oh, and let's bust a myth while we're at it. You might have been told to vary your word choice to sound more sophisticated. Well, that's not the best idea. Using too many different words for the same thing can actually confuse your readers. So, stick to consistent wording. It helps your readers stay focused and avoid any unnecessary messages or misunderstandings. 5. Don't break the flow. Continuity matters more than clarity. Now, I know I harped on the importance of clarity in a previous video, and I still mean what I said, but here's a little secret. Continuity is just as crucial. Sometimes, you must prioritize keeping the flow going, even if it means sacrificing a bit of clarity. Research has shown that readers rely on continuity to make sense of what they're reading. Our eyes naturally pause at the start of sentences, trying to connect them to the previous one. When sentences lack a clear link to what came before, our eyes linger even longer, desperately searching for a connection. And here's the kicker. Our brains latch onto common words and subjects from sentence to sentence, using them as clues to infer meaning, even if the sentences themselves don't make much sense. So, what does this mean for you as a writer? Well, it means you can't ignore continuity. You need to make sure your sentences flow smoothly from one to the next, even if it means using passive construction from time to time. I know it might feel counterintuitive after we talked about clarity, but sometimes you gotta go with the flow. Now, don't get me wrong. In most cases, you can maintain both clarity and continuity without any issues, but there will be times when these two principles clash. For example, when you're using consistent subjects and topics to keep the reader on track, you might find yourself resorting to passive construction. That's okay. So long as it helps maintain the flow and connection between sentences, it's a trade-off worth making. Of course, you should always try to find a balance. Experiment with different phrasing and sequencing to see if you can maintain both continuity and clarity without relying on passive construction. But don't be afraid to use it when it's necessary. Remember, you don't have to follow every continuity principle with every sentence you write. Pick and choose the ones that work best for your specific context. If you're using consistent subjects, you may not even need as many transitions. And if you're sequencing your ideas tightly, transitions or consistent subjects might not even be necessary. Play around with it and find what works for you. If you haven't seen the previous episode on these C's for strong prose, I recommend giving it a look. I also have several other constructive videos on topics for videos that you won't find on any other channel. So, if you want something fresh and simple, look around.